And I'm about to start the live stream.
No.
And I see that we are live streaming, Mr. Mayor, anytime you're ready.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Good evening, Council and members of the SLT and the viewing public. The clerk informs me that we have quorum, so I call to order this regular council meeting of Monday, October 19th at 5:30 p.m. First of all, we'll have the approval of the agenda, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I do have a motion. Just need to get my screen back to where I need it. I do have a motion by Councillor Hildebrand, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the October 19th of 2020 regular meeting of Council be adopted. I do understand there are a few items to be added at item 14 of the agenda. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. I personally have one item for item 14, a notice of motion that I will be bringing forward to Council. And did we have another councillor bringing forth? Councillor Hahn.
Yes, I will also have a notice of motion under item 14.
Okay, thank you. And one more, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I also will be putting forward a notice of motion under 14.
Great, thank you. Sorry I didn't have my mic on, everyone. Okay, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So I'll put that as an amendment to the agenda under the same mover and seconder. If I could call for a vote on the amendment. Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. Are there any further changes requested through you, Mr. Mayor?
Any other changes to the agenda? Not seen any, Madam Clerk.
So this will then be on the motion to approve the agenda as amended. And again, we'll start with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is the disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does any council member have such a thing to declare? Oh, Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a pecuniary interest under item 10.2.4 about the mandatory mask bylaw. As you're all aware, I have been stitching masks both for sale and donations, so I think that disqualifies me from discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other notion pecuniary interest to declare? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. With the councillor's indulgence, I will also mark that pecuniary interest with regard to item 13, presentation and consideration of the bylaw as well.
Okay. Next, we have hearing presentations, delegations. The presentations, right, next one will be the COVID-19 update, Community Emergency Management Coordinator, Fire Chief Bob Limburner. Chief, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor, Council, SLT, and members of the viewing public. Just a quick update on our COVID numbers as of this afternoon. Pelham currently has had 48 total cases. We have one active case in town, and out of the 12 municipalities, 2 municipalities have 0 active cases. Across Niagara, we're at 1,268 cases. We picked up 15 cases today, 66 active cases, 1,134 recovered, and 68 deaths. Across the province, we're at 65,000 075 cases, 55,978 of those recovered, and we're at 3,050 deaths. Across the country, we broke the 2,000 plateau today for total cases. Of those, 169,000 have recovered, and we're at 9,770 deaths. Across Niagara, the numbers, we currently have 5 outbreaks. We have 50 outbreaks that have been resolved. Our case doubling time is at 109 days. Our reproductive rate is at 0.8. As I said in the past, anything below 1 is good because it means that we're reducing the numbers. Our positivity rate on testing is at 0.9, another good number. As far as infection goes, males 45.4%, females 54.6%. Close contact is 61.8% with community spread of 28.1%. And being about 5 or 6 days from Thanksgiving weekend, some of these increases that we're experiencing are from household spreads. So they're not community or close contact spreads. So if somebody in a family gets it, they end up infecting everybody else in their household. So today's numbers reflect that, and we anticipate that to continue to be the case for the next few days because of last weekend being Thanksgiving. It's predominantly in the 20 to 39-year-olds. One good note is that the 80-plus age group, as far as the total number of cases, has dropped down to the 4th total, which is good. They're our most vulnerable demographic. The province has added the region of York to the number of regions that have gone back to a modified stage 2 that took place midnight last night. As far as trick-or-treating goes, the province issued guidelines today for safe trick-or-treating. So they're allowing trick-or-treating to go in the regions other than the hotspots. So Toronto, Peel, Ottawa, and York are considered hotspots, and they're not recommending trick-or-treating in those areas. All other areas, they've offered guidance to remain safe. And that's about it for my update. If there's any questions?
Thank you, Chief Limburner. As stated, is there any questions for the chief? Not seeing any, I will ask one. So, Chief, obviously, when we have a couple more, a week, 10 days before the Halloween, obviously those provisions that the province is going to hand down will obviously be well publicized by Halloween, I would imagine.
Our communications, Mark I forwarded the information to him first thing this morning, and I believe he already has it in the works, and it should be, if it's not published by now, it should be published very shortly.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, members of council, I'll call the vote then, starting with Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that the council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from B. Limburner, Fire Chief and Community Emergency Management Coordinator for information. That's on a motion by Councillors Olsen and Hahn. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries, Mr. Mayor, and through you, Mr. Mayor, the communication specialist has advised that the guidelines have already been published to the town's website.
Excellent. Excellent. Next on the agenda is our COVID-19 update from our CAO, Mr. David Cribbs. Mr. Cribbs, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Council. If you'll give me just a little bit of leeway and latitude, I have 3 very positive announcements for you, one of which is directly on the topic of COVID, 2 of which are sort of tangential. Which is to say, congratulations are in order to each of you. You are the directors and guiding mind of a municipal corporation that for the second time in 2 years has won some awards for some communications work. It is very much my privilege to inform you that the Association of Marketing and Communications Professionals is like an international industry association. Its annual awards are the MARCOMs, so Marketing and Communications, sort of jammed together as one word, and kind of happily today, Pelham learned we received an honorable mention for the communications suite of press releases, news releases, advertisements, social media stuff that was put out this spring during COVID, but on the topic of gypsy moth. So didn't actually win an award there, received an honorable mention, but that's still quite an accomplishment. And that was in the field of corporate social responsibility. We did garner a gold, and that's for the town's inaugural annual financial report, the 2019 report that Ms. Quinlan and her team quarterbacked through. That got a gold medal, and a platinum. I'm most pleased of all to announce to you was one for Moving Forward, which you'll recall is the name we gave to the town's reopening document and plan. And that's in the area of crisis communications. And really, the reason that's a particularly good story isn't just that it's the highest level of honor they had to give out, but and as far as we're aware, we're the only municipality out of Canada to have won one so far. It's really that we reached out and we started that document by talking to every staff member, surveying every staff member, giving and making up teams of staff. It was led by the 6 corporate leaders in the senior leadership team, and those people led teams of staff who were consulted and were involved in that. And then ultimately we created this document that you felt confident to endorse. And so really everyone involved with the town, everyone who plays a role here was involved in that document. And it served us really well so far. Proof of the pudding's in the eating. Moreover, we're all involved in it, and it won a platinum for crisis communications. So like a really, really good day. Mark McDonald, of course, deserves credit more than any. We're all cogs in the machine. We all play a role, but these are all 3 where he was front and center, obviously, and a really good day for the town in recognition of what I think was a lot of work and caring and dedication on trying to sort of, I remember those were fairly dark days trying to figure out the right way forward and what would work. And it looks like third parties who have a lot to judge felt that too. So really good day for Pelham, good day for those communications pieces, each of which happened during COVID, one of which is specifically about the response to COVID and our way to move forward. Well, that's my report this evening. Thank you.
No. Thank you very much, Mr. CAO. I know Council humbly accepts your words to Council. We'll throw it right back on you. I know on behalf of Council, we really appreciate the work that the SLT and the rest of the staff have done to so much, and you guys have done so much to improve the communications and getting council's message and the town's message out to the residents. And obviously, these awards definitely show that. So, council, thanks all of staff for doing the yeoman's job in getting the messages out to the residents. I'll also now go to any member of council wishing to comment on the report of the CAO. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, and a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hahn. Be it resolved that Council received the COVID-19 update presentation from D. Cribbs, Chief Administrative Officer, for information. And this vote starts with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Mr. Mayor, the next item on your agenda is the COVID-19 update with regard to events during COVID, and Director Van Ravensway has this report.
And Ms. Van Ravensway, you have the floor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to update council on actually the MCC, Meridian Community Center, sorry. We have a habit of saying MCC and not everyone knows what that is. We're finding out. Anyhow, things are going very well here. Programs are continuing and residents are getting used to reserving their spaces. And actually during this rainy day, our walking track has become pretty busy but controlled. Public skating is going very well. People are phoning for their reservations. Yeah, all in all, the actual programming and the rentals at the MCC is full steam ahead, and everyone is participating by the guidelines. With regard to events, we do have a report for Christmas in Pelham. As noted in the report, it takes time to prepare for events, as we all know. And this report is written according to our guidelines and recommendations from Public Health and the province, as well as Festivals and Events Ontario. But we all know that as numbers may increase, the events may be halted, but we need to continue on and prepare going forward in case we can, or we anticipate participating in the events. So we would have Christmas in Pelham, the outdoor Christmas market, and that would be based similar to the farmers market guidelines, according to Public Health, as well as our Christmas parade in cooperation with the Fenwick Lions. We will be, we're in communications with them now. Under the guidelines, we cannot host a parade, although we can host a reverse parade in which we're proposing to host this reverse parade at Centennial Park, in which the actual parade participants would be stationary and residents would drive through the parade in their vehicles, so that we abide by attendance, and it's a controlled setting. So these are the two upcoming events that we are preparing for, and I would take any of council's questions if you have them.
Okay. Thank you for that report, Ms. Van Ravensway. It's great to see that COVID-19 is not slowing down the events of the town too much. Compared to other municipalities, Pelham really is doing a great job, not only with the MCC, but keeping the community involved in these tough times. Any questions for Director of Recreation, Ms. Van Ravensway, from any council member? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I have a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive the COVID-19 update presentation from V. Van Ravensway, Director of Recreation, Culture and Wellness, for information. This vote starts with Councillor Stewart, please.
Yes.
Councillor Wink,
Yes.
Counselor Hahn,
Yes.
Counselor Hildebrand,
Yes.
Counselor Olson,
Yes.
and Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And the motion carries unanimously, Mr. Mayor. We have no delegations scheduled, and the regional councillor is not reporting at this meeting. So the next item on your agenda is the adoption of minutes. I have a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the following minutes be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. C-16-2020, regular council minutes of October 5th, and SC-14-2020, special council minutes of September 28th. To you, Mr. Mayor, to check on errors or omissions.
Yep. After hearing the minutes presented by the clerk, is there any omissions or additions that any councillors would like to see? And I see Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just noticed a typographical error on the regular council minutes. It's on the resolution to move in camera. That's on page 13 that carries over to 14. It shows that it was unanimous, but in the against column, there was a number 1.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor, for bringing that to the clerk's attention. I'm sure the clerk will make the changes.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll review those minutes and make changes that are necessary. It could be that there was one member of council who was absent, so I will double check that. Thank you.
Okay.
I'll double check that.
Any other councillor have omissions or additions to the minutes? Not seen any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. So that will be as amended, the one set of minutes as amended, and the vote starts with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I'm just noting that there is an amendment there to address. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any business arising from the minutes listed on the agenda. Are there any requests to lift consent agenda items through you, Mr. Mayor?
So starting at the 8.1 and throughout, I see Councillor Wink. You wish to lift something.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to lift 8.3.2 through to 8.3.6, 8.5.2, and 8.71, please.
Okay. Thank you. The clerk noted those.
So just as a note of clarity, you want items 8.3.2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 lifted?
That's correct.
And 8.5.2, the petition, and 8.7.1, library board minutes?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, on a motion by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Olson, be it resolved that the consent agenda items as listed on the October 19th, 2020 council agenda be received and recommendations contained therein be approved as applicable. And that would be save and accept those items. So I'll just briefly read through. The first is the staff report on the 2020 Ward 1 by-election 2020-0138 clerks to be received for information. The next item would be item 8.3.7, Recreation, Culture, and Wellness Monthly Report for the RCW Department. 8.3.8, Fire and Bylaw Services Report and Information Correspondence. 8.5.1 being a letter from the Honorable Sylvia Jones, Solicitor General, with regard to anti-racism and the Community Safety and Policing Act. Any comments or questions with regard to any of those items listed?
Not seen any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, are you able to hear me or see me?
Oh,
I would like to lift, through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to lift 8.3.7 as well.
okay, you're way down on the other screen. I'm sorry, Counselor, you're not, I do have a hard time seeing you down there. Which item was that again, sir?
I have it, 8.3.7.
8.3.7.
Okay.
Okay. Counselor Olson, are you able to enable your camera?
Well, let me see here.
That way we would be able to see your hand up. That would be easier.
I can see you, but I don't know.
Okay, so we'll move that one out of, we'll move that one down. That's the 8.3.7, the RCW.
That's right.
Okay, so on the remainder of the items then, Counselor Hahn.
Yes.
Unless there was any discussion on any of the items that are remaining on the consent agenda. Sorry. Hearing none. Counselor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Counselor Olson.
Yes.
Counselor Stewart.
Yes.
Counselor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That's carried. So, Mr. Mayor, the next item for discussion will then be item 8.3.2, the August 2020 financial reports. And there is a motion by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Olson. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0148 Corporate Services for information. So over to you for discussion.
Okay, and we'll go to Councillor Wink first.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Actually, this is just more of a comment to all of council. Under council approved expenditures outside of budget, looking at the report, what we've done and what's coming up, it's roughly a 3.5% estimated in tax increase due to legal proceedings regarding cannabis, LPAT hearings, and the parking study. Going forward, council needs to be cognizant of approving expenditures outside of budget. We can't keep on playing catch up on this, and at some point in time, we've got to stop the bleeding with respect to tax increases, and that's my only comment.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Wink. Words of wisdom for sure. Any other, on this particular item, any other council member have a comment to make? Not seen, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just moving the reports out of the agenda, so if you'll just give me a moment. So so if there are no changes to the motion then?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, so I'm just waiting for my system to catch up with me. I will call the vote on item 8.3.2, which is the financial report. And I will start this one with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item that was lifted for separate consideration is 8.3.3, the Clerk's Department monthly report. And there is a motion, be it resolved that Council receive the Clerk's report for information.
Excellent. And we will return to Councillor Wink.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment with respect to this report and essentially all the reporting that we receive from the various directors. We've got a 2019 year-end numbers and 2020 year-to-date numbers, but the year-end numbers don't really mean a heck of a lot to me. I'd like to see what the comparison is to the previous year-to-date. So if we could include an extra column in there going forward, it would be certainly helpful.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps we will, Mr. CAO, any comment on that request?
The purpose of the reports is to provide information to council. If we're missing the mark or if there's a better way, different information council would like. You prefer year to date, so you can do a better apples to apples comparison, as I assume where Councillor Wink's going with that. I see a nod in the affirmation. We're happy to do so. We're quite capable of doing that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for bringing that to our attention, Councillor Wink. Any other councillor have a comment on the 8.3.3? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you. And to receive that report for information, 8.3.3. Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. The next item is 8.3.4, Corporate Services Q3 2020 Report. Be it resolved that Council receive the Corporate Services Report 2020-0150 for information, and that's on a motion by Councillors Hahn and Olson.
Okay. And we will go to any councillor that has a comment, and the first is Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little bit of helpful information for council. So we've indicated a number of invitations to bid, and it shows who was awarded the various contracts. But it would be helpful for council to know what was the budgeted amount for each of those items. So we're seeing a number, but we don't know if it's above or below budget.
And again, I will turn to Mr. CAO. Any comments on the request?
Look, we're always happy to provide more information, but if it was awarded, it's because it came in under the budget. We can't, one of our powers don't exceed, say, we estimate something at 50,000. If they all come in at 60,000, we won't be awarding it. It will be coming to you in a staff report. Those are the rules we have in place so that council always maintains control. But conversely, if a bid's come in under whatever the approved budget was, keeping in mind the budget is approved by yourselves, albeit based on our advice. But if the numbers come in under, then there's just a process that happens automatically. So if you wish more information, we can provide that. But the only way we can award is if it's under budget or on budget, but not if it's even a penny over. We don't have that power or leeway. So Ms. Quinlan wants to add anything from an accounting perspective?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I appreciate that fact. However, it still would be nice to know if we're 20,000 under budget or 1 cent under budget, because we got to start counting pennies somewhere.
Okay. Thank you for that, Councillor. And perhaps we, going forward, staff could include that number. Okay, and I see the Director of Finances nodding to the affirmative. Any other comments on that particular item on, I believe it's 8.3.4? Yes, Councillor Olson, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the director. I found the right button to push to turn the video on.
Very good.
I want to say that I share Councillor Wink's concern for the need for fiscal discipline at this time. My review of the statements and the information, the financial information, indicates we really have to be careful. But my question was going to be, what was it here? The building activity statistics. They've gone up appreciably in the month of September. And I would like to know if that's going to be the case for the rest of the year. I know you can't predict, but it does seem like that's quite a healthy increase since the month of September.
And I'll ask the Director of Planning perhaps to comment on that. Ms. Weens?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. It's always difficult to predict when we will, what our building permit activity will be. However, this year is proving to be fairly strong. You can see that in 2018, the building permit activity in September was quite an anomaly and out of character with the rest of the year, but 2018 was probably our busiest year with respect to building permit activity. This year we are trending in terms of certainly maintaining our averages and in some months exceeding it, and that's even with having not being able to be in a position to issue permits for about a 5-week period during COVID. Currently, right now, the market is very strong, and so we anticipate that we'll be able to maintain building permit activity. What we often find is that there is an uptake in building permit activity during the month of September, October, because people want to get foundations in the ground before frost hits. And so we sometimes get that, again, an uptick during those months, and then it slows up a little bit in later months.
Thank you for that, Madame Weens. Councillor Olson, is that the answer you were looking for?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor? Oh, I see Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. While we're still on the same subject, I'd also like to address the Planning Department's report. It records the number of building permits issued, the value of the building permits, but what I'd like to see provided by either the Corporate Services Director or the Planning Department, the value of the development charges collected, because that building permit time is a time when we collect funds. And I'd like to see that number appear in that report as well.
Okay. Any comment on that from the Director of Planning? Is that something we can expect to see?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, we do collect development charges at the time of building permit, and those charges are remitted directly to the finance or corporate services. And so there certainly is the ability to record that either in our report or the corporate services report. So we can make that happen.
Okay, thank you. Any other comment, Councillor Hildebrand?
No, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. And I see Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I support that request. That'd be meaningful information. And further to Councillor Wink's comment, perhaps we could have it in, according to what the budget was as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll go to any other councillor, any comments? Oh, I see Councillor Hahn.
Through you, Mayor. So at some point, I think we leapt to a different page, correct? Okay, so under corporate services, I just wanted to ask about the bid for the vehicle 0520 full-size work truck. It looks like there's only one bidder, Chrysler. I just want to make sure that's not an error, that none of the other companies wanted to put forth an offer there. Number one. And number two, just that in a lot of cases, you're looking at 0% for 5 years, 4 years, sometimes even 6 years. Just wanting to understand if we're buying this all out, I mean, there's financing for several years. So the total amount of the 34,920, if I guess that can be spoken to, just so I can understand why we're not taking advantage of finance rates being as low as they are.
And Director of Finance, can you answer those questions, please? or, go ahead.
I don't know if I don't know if the Director of Public Works knows specifically why that vehicle was purchased. I do know that I can answer the question on purchasing the vehicle outright. We have the money in the budget, and we tend to purchase our vehicles unless they're very large vehicles that sometimes we lease them. So that's why it just made sense for us just to purchase them as opposed to taking out finance, because we had the funds set aside in the budget for that. So with regards to why that particular vehicle was purchased, I don't have the details behind that. I don't know if the Director of Public Works has that.
Okay. Director Jason, would you want to comment on that purchase?
Sure. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The truck was replacing an older unit, which would be replaced. It's just a replacement in our fleet. That's basically all the information I have on that. I can confirm also to your other question that we did only receive the one quote on that particular tender.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hahn, you had something about the water though, didn't you? Right?
No, not about water. I just going back to the question though. So it might be in the budget, but if there's an opportunity to basically have financing over 4 years or 5 years, whatever the term is, as opposed to laying out almost $35,000 in one fell swoop in 1 year, why would you not take advantage of that? I just need further clarity on that, please.
Because we'll be incurring additional interest costs on that. So why would we want to take on additional interest costs when we have the money to buy it out front? And also you get some discounts in paying cash for the vehicle.
So when it's 0% financing, that means that you'll be able to finance it with payments over that term at 0%. There isn't interest, it's 0%.
There are incentives for paying cash. So it's hidden in there somewhere. But we definitely could look into that for the next one, Councillor Hahn. We'll look into that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor, and thank you, Director of Finance. Any other questions on this corporate services? Madam Clerk, we turn to you.
Thank you. And just for clarity for council, we are on the corporate services report on a motion by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Olsen, to receive the item 8.3.4 corporate services Q3 2020 report for information. And this vote starts with Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And that motion carries. So the next item on the agenda is the Community Planning and Development report, and be it resolved that council receive the Community Planning and Development report 2020-0146 for information on a motion by Councillors Hahn and Olsen. There have been already some questions on this, but to you, Mr. Mayor, for further questions.
Okay, and we will start with Councillor Wink.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the Director of Planning. I think I know the answer to this, but I have a follow-up question. What period of time does a developer have to appeal to LPAT after a decision has been made?
Mr. Mayor, through you, it depends on the type of application, but generally it is a 20-day appeal period for official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and subdivision applications. And for consent, I believe it's also 20 days. So that's the appeal period is what's determined in the Planning Act.
Okay, thank you for that, Director. That was my understanding. Just wanted to confirm that. So just want to know if there was LPAT appeals filed for 1307 Hayes Street and 20 Ellen Crescent.
Mr. Mayor, through you, yes, there were appeals on those two. And I believe 20 Allen Crescent is due to be heard by the LPAT in November. And the appeal on 1307 Haste Street, we're working on compiling all of that and getting that up to the LPAT.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
and I see Mr. CEO has his hand up. Go ahead, sir.
Council, there'll be a closed session report to you brought by external legal counsel on November the 2nd, dealing with the Allen Park application.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from councillors on this item? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you. And again, on a motion by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Olsen, be it resolved the council received the Community Planning and Development Report 2020-0146 for information. Starting with Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Olsen.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. And the next item that was lifted is item 8.3.6, Public Works Monthly Report. And there will be a motion by Councillor Hahn and Olsen. Be it resolved that council receives the Public Works Monthly Report for information, 2020-0151.
And we will start with Councillor Wink.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Public Works. Station Street Sanitary Sewer Diversion Project. At the last council meeting, you advised council that the work to complete would take 2 weeks. Now we were at 4 weeks. I just want to ask the director if he's confident that the work will be done before paving plants close for the winter, and is it possible that the utility locates be done now to help speed up the process?
Director of Public Works.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, that's exactly the reason why I'm saying that it's a 4-week period from the time of closing tenders. Usually it takes a minimum of 2 weeks to receive locates. That's a legal responsibility by the contractor, and they are obligated to have their own locates prior to doing their own work. We can't order those locates in advance. So until we know who the low bidder is, once we have an award and we close tenders, we have a low bidder, we will engage that contractor to order locates and start the process. I do believe it's at most it's a 2-week construction project at most. So I am fairly confident that we will be able to complete this work and reinstate the road to hard surface asphalt prior to the closing of the asphalt plants.
Thanks for the clarification.
Okay, and on that same item, if I may, I couldn't help but notice on that Hay Street water main replacement that we ended up $188,000 under budget for that. A great thing to see. Director, was that any one thing that pushed us that we were able to save on, or was it just a combination of little things here and there that brought in us $188,000 under budget?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So in a lot of our tenders, most of our tenders will have contingency items and provisional items that are in place in the event that you do need to use those items. In this particular project, the contractor was able to complete the work without having to use those contingency items. Another factor was there was an allowance and items in the tender to replace sanitary sewer laterals to the private properties when we came through with the water main work. The contractor was able to work around the existing sanitary laterals, and so we didn't have those expenses as well. And basically, good inspection and engineering from town staff. We managed that project ourselves in-house, and they were able to successfully complete that contract and at the minimal cost.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Like I say, anytime we can get a project that much under budget is sure feather in Public Works cap. Thank you for that. Madam Clerk, any other comments on what is it we're at, 8.3.6? Any other comments? Councillor Olson.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the director. I noticed that you're expecting the plow truck to be delivered sometime in the first quarter, and another notation I saw said February. Is there provision for a backup this winter for that vehicle?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Right now, we'll continue using our current fleet. We are making the necessary repairs to the fleet to keep it in working order. The truck that this particular piece of equipment will be replacing is a very old unit and on its last legs, but we will endeavor to keep that piece of equipment on the road and in service. In the event that goes down, it happens time and time again, and we're able to basically supplement that down piece of equipment by getting it repaired as quickly as possible, but substituting with other equipment to fill those routes. So this is not something that's going to be new to us, and we'll have to just, again, make sure that the maintenance and upkeep is done properly, and we'll be receiving that new plow sometime in early February, looks like.
Okay. Thank you. Does that answer your questions, Councillor Olson?
Yes, thank you, Director. Mr. Mayor, through you again for another question.
Yes.
I noticed in the report that from Public Works, the first page is the service request from the public. And I look at that chart, and I've concluded that that chart is demonstrating a system that's coming under control, better management control, because you see it flattening, and you also see a couple of spikes in there, which are events that are probably predictable in some way. I was wondering if every department could supply that along with their reports to council, because then we could see the activity of our service requests from the public. And further, on a time-based system, we should be able to look at a report like this and see the age of any outstanding requests, so that we know that the requests are clearing properly. And if this is going to become a central part of our public service system, I think we should be reporting it in that manner. Thank you.
Mr. CAO, perhaps you want to comment on Councillor Olson?
Generally, Councillor Olson's aspirations are, I think, overall in line with things we'd like to work towards. But Council, you've identified this as a top 10 priority. Staff needs some time. You're going to get the budget in 48 hours from now. It's gone to print, but there's some delays, so it'll be available Wednesday. It is appropriate in this matter to give us a bit of time to look at our technology and figure out some things around the reporting piece. We've just agreed to make 4 or 5 significant revisions to how we're reporting things to you on a quarterly basis. Please give us a chance to digest some of those and work our way through them. We are working towards these things, but we're not even a month removed from adding this to our strategic priorities, and we need some time.
So I take it, Mr. CAO, you're pleading for patience.
Well, like, we've been working on this budget the whole month, and you're getting it in 48 hours. So Rome not built in a day.
Yeah.
And our real problem is our size. It's the exact same people working on the exact same things. And until we fix cloning technology, there you have it.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Olson, any other comments?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hahn?
Through the mayor, this is to the Director of Public Works. So in and around this time last year, I'd asked a question, I guess, about the purchase of sand and salt for our roads for the winter weather. And at that point in time, we had either, I think we had just missed the boat with regards to making the joint purchase with our buying group with the other two municipalities or 3 municipalities, so we could have cost savings. So I'll ask the question, I guess, this year, have we made our purchase with the bulk salt and sand, and did we have much in the way of cost savings by working with the purchasing power of the other 2 or 3 municipalities?
Is that Director of Public Works, perhaps?
Sure, I'll take a stab at it.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. We believe we have enough salt and sand now to carry us through the balance of 2020, pending any major snow events and a bad fall and start of the winter. We will take that under consideration. I will bring that back to our manager of Public Works to ensure that they're going through and trying to leverage the resources of the partnerships for purchasing the salt and the sand. We haven't made any purchases yet, basically since last winter.
Okay, thank you. That good for you, Councillor Hahn?
Yes, I just want to make sure that we're leveraging the purchasing power of the other couple of municipalities as well. So when we make any large purchases, such as salt, sand, or anything else for that matter.
Okay, thank you. And I see the Director of Finance wishes to speak on this.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a lot of our purchases are done through the Niagara Peninsula Purchasing Group, and my understanding that this was one of them, but we'll definitely look into that so that they do try to get the best prices. And this group includes the college, university, other municipalities, and also the hospital as well. So it's a very large group for purchases, but we'll definitely double check that. My understanding was that it was purchased through the group purchasing.
Okay, thank you for that, Madam. Finance, any other questions on the Public Works? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. And on the motion to receive the Public Works report for information, Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
That motion carries. And the next item that was lifted is 8.3.7, the Recreation, Culture and Wellness Report to be received for information on a motion by Councillors Hahn and Olson. And I believe it was Councillor Olson who pulled this one.
Okay, so we'll go to Council, but first we will go to Councillor Olson. Councillor?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director. I wonder if you could make some comments about the on-demand transportation system. I'm looking at a chart that you provided that said there were eight accessible trips out of 1,099 in the first period. Is that what we expected to have happen, that low a number?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Olson, you're referring to the one chart is actually the West Niagara, the whole system. And they, within that basically month in a week, they had 1,099 trips, and 8 of those trips were accessible. The second page is actually just for Pelham. So during that, so the first page was Grimsby, Pelham, Lincoln, West Lincoln, who am I missing? Wainfleet. And for the second page, that actually just relates to Pelham. So during that month, they had 257 trips, and we had 0 accessible trips. And your question to that is, yes, that's very low. Accessible trips. Yes, and we met with the region, I would say 3 weeks ago, with regard to the numbers, and I expressed that the accessible trips were low. They're going to be working on better communications. They're hoping to send out a actual mail out to every household in Pelham. We're not quite sure what the issue is there. Our staff are working with residents as well. We did have some hiccups with the the app. Not everyone has a cell phone. So in order to get a ride, you need to call. And there was a long period of time before the phone was answered. So that was expressed to the region. And we are hoping that we will have better numbers next report.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, Mr. Olson? Councillor Olson?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for putting me on the right page there. But I guess the statement is the same. We need more. We're offering a service, and the accessible riders have this trip available to them. And I'm glad we're going to be doing some outreach to the community.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments on this item? Not seeing any. I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, I will call the question on receiving the Recreation, Culture and Wellness Report for information. Starting with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The vote carries. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next lifted item is item 8.5.2, petition requesting a three-way stop at Pelham Street and Short Hills Place.
Okay. And I believe Councillor Wink, you pulled this item also.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Public Works. Not so much a question, but I have had discussions with Mr. Marr with respect to this petition and the requests, and I thought Council probably would like the opportunity to hear what we're doing at this point in time with respect to the three-way stop and the, like any long street, people have a tendency of racing up and down a little bit. So more comment with respect to that stop. So I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Marr.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We have received obviously a petition for a three-way stop at Short Hills Place and Pelham Street, with respect to the identification of high speeds for traffic. A little bit of background on this is that this is a section of road that's still under construction. Although it's substantially complete, we are looking at completing the work in the springtime with top asphalt pavement markings, which would identify our pedestrian crossing points, and have you. In April of last year, we did complete a warrant study on the installation of a three-way stop at Hurricane Road and Pelham Street. Through that study, it was determined that a three-way stop was not warranted at that location. So as it stands right now, we have received a petition for the public, from the public, requesting a three-way stop at Short Hills Place and Pelham. Engineering staff, in accordance with our traffic calming policy, engineering staff now will start collecting engineering data, which would be used in the determination of whether or not the town would proceed with any type of traffic calming measures. Best practices and in accordance with the Ministry of Transportation Ontario Traffic Manual, which looks at stop signs and warrants and needs for stop controlled intersections. They state that the use of stop controlled intersections as a traffic calming measure is not a best practice. It has been proven that when a stop controlled intersection is in place, it does stop and reduce speeds of traffic, but only for 100 meters prior to and following the intersection. That being said, if this council wishes to proceed with the installation of a three-way stop, that would be council's decision to move forward on that basis. In accordance with our policy and basically the course of action we intend to follow is to conduct the investigations and studies now to look at the volume of traffic on that road, the speeds that are being exhibited by that traffic, the number of pedestrians, and then follow our process for our traffic calming policy to see if this is a candidate for traffic calming measures. One of the features that was built into this project was a form of road dieting in which the curb is brought in to narrow the lanes, which gives the visual appearance that it's narrower lanes, so traffic tends to slow down. Without having the asphalt work completed, the line markings are not in place at this point in time. So we intend to finish this work in the spring, which will include correct pavement markings. It'll include identified pedestrian crossing points. And if in fact at that time that does not satisfy the speeding requirements, we'll have the engineering data, and I'm happy to report back to council with that information once we collect that data on this particular section of road. Then we will proceed in accordance with our policy and look at what traffic calming measures could be put in place to try to reduce the speeds.
Thank you. Councilor Wink, any comments before I go to council?
No, thank you for that, Mr. Maher. Just one further question. Has the speed signs been put up, the monitoring signs to tell people how fast they're going on that section of road?
Public Works Director?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, at this point in time, they have not. They will be scheduled to be placed there. We will also be placing some traffic counters, which are installed on the road surface, and those are also able to detect speeds of vehicles and give us some data over the study period, which usually is 2 or 3 days. That'll give us information with respect to the volume of traffic and the speeds that are occurring on that section of road. We will be installing those speed warning signs. Just need to schedule that in.
Thank you.
Any other comments to the director on this stretch of road? I personally am in favor of collecting the data and just seeing the speeds and the people on the road. And I know we do have a process for evaluating the stop signs, the three-way stops, and I'm glad to see the Public Works is following that process. And like you say, the painting of the lines and what have you have also yet to be completed. So excellent. Thank you for that. Any other comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. We'll start this vote with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the final item lifted is 8.7.1 Pelham Library Board Minutes.
Okay. And before we go to the rest of council, I believe Councillor Stewart, you lifted this item?
No,
Oh,
Councillor
no?
Wink, I think.
No,
Oh.
no, I didn't.
It was Councillor Wink. I'm sorry, Councillor.
Okay, no problem. Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the minutes of June 24th, 2020, it was indicated that the library board received audited statements for 2019. I would like to make a request from the board or the library board that copies of that be provided to council as soon as possible. Council should be privy to these statements since town provides most of the revenues for the library, and we're just about to go into budget deliberations, so it's worthwhile having this report.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments? Councillor Hildebrand.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a general comment with regards to the library board minutes. I find them very vague and lacking in detail. And I'd appreciate if the library board could be much more detailed and descriptive of what's happening at the library.
Okay, thank you for those comments, sir. Director of Finance, Ms. Quinlan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in response to the question asked by Councillor Wink, in the audit financial statements for the consolidated statements of the town, there is a schedule in the back, I don't have it in front of me, that actually has the breakdown of the library expenses in there. So that's what they would have received. They would receive it from us. So in our audit financial statements, one of the schedules has the library schedule in there. So if
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hildebrand?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In the past, what I've seen happen is that is true what the corporate director is stating. The town has its financial statement. But I've noted in the past that the library has their own one sheet summary that they issue. And I'm not sure whether they plan on issuing it, have issued it as their information to the public. So I'm not sure whether that has been done or not.
Thank you. Any other comments on the library audited statements? Not seeing any. I will return to the clerk.
Thank you, and we do have the motion by Councillors Hahn and Olson to receive the library board minutes of April 22nd, May 19th, and June 24th. Starting with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries. And that concludes the lifted consent agenda items, and we already voted on the consent agenda itself. So we'll now move to the staff reports requiring action. The first report is the Christmas in Pelham report, and on a motion by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0147 and recommend that Council adopt the Santa Claus Parade as a reverse parade drive-through event as a part of Christmas in Pelham, to be held at Centennial Park, 999 Church Street in Fenwick on Saturday, December the 12th, 2020. That Council designate Christmas in Pelham 2020 Outdoor Christmas Market to be held on Friday, December the 4th, 2020 from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Pelham Town Square as a municipally significant event. And that the clerk be authorized to make application for a special occasion permit for the Christmas in Pelham Outdoor Christmas Market. And further, that Council authorize the following road closure: Pelham Town Square entrance at Pelham Street to 55 meters east of Pelham Street from 10 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. on Friday, December the 4th of 2020. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, so on this item, any discussion from any councillors? I guess my concern, Ms. Van Ravensway, is the controlling the numbers. You obviously feel that with only the number of entrances and exits you have, that you will be able to control the numbers in accordance with either Niagara Health or provincial guidelines?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. The the event will be fenced off with security at each gate, and numbers will be taken as they exit and enter, similar to the farmers market.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. And I'll go back to my regular order of voting. Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries unanimously. Through Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda, 10.2.2. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0145, Corporate Services, and that Council supports the assessment that the Town of Pelham's financial situation requires provincial funding under Phase 2 on the basis that the funding under Phase 1 is not sufficient to address 2020 COVID-related operating pressures, and that Council supports the Town of Pelham's decision to apply for Phase 2 funding, and that's on a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Wink.
And before I open it to council, perhaps the Director of Finance would like to comment on this. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this is an opportunity that we have received from the government to do a Phase 2 funding. Most of the municipalities in the Niagara region are applying for this funding, and we're just gonna, so how it works is that we have to report on expenditures up until September 30th, and then we have to project on expenditures from October 1st to December 31st. The decision by the government on who gets the funding will be done by the end of December, so that we'll know what the impact will be for our 2021 budget. And they said that the money will be given to the municipalities in the early weeks of January. So it's a very quick turnaround for this. There's a lot of reporting, a lot of schedules. Part of the format and how we have to report back is using the financial information return format. So there's a lot of work involved in this reporting, but we're definitely going to be applying for it and looking at all the expenses that we've incurred and trying to get full recovery of the COVID impact for 2020.
Great, thank you for that update. We will go to council. Any councillor have any questions on the resolution itself or to the Director of Finance? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, I'll start the voting with Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. The next item of business is 10.2.3, moved by Councillor Hahn, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0153, Chief Administrative Officer for information purposes, and that the proposed public code of conduct be approved. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Yes, and perhaps before again we go to council, I'll ask the CEO to comment on this code of conduct. I know you put a lot of time into this. Any comments before I open it to council, sir?
Just that we took the minimalist approach. There's no code in the code. There's no positive behavioral requirements whatsoever. Really what it says is don't abuse town volunteers and town staff. So that's the only prohibition is, don't be abusive. in behavior, tenor, tone, language, etc. And I think that's a fair and reasonable standard and expectation. And in fairness, it is one that the overwhelming majority of residents consistently adhere to. But obviously, if this is brought in the context of the coronavirus, it is meant to it will survive the coronavirus. I do think it's an appropriate thing to have. Basically, obviously, the pandemic, though, is the impetus. I think a lot of people are under stress, and some of us on occasion are maybe having shorter fuses or are just not dealing with that stress very well. And we believe this is an appropriate way forward. We thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for that update, Mr. CAO. Any questions or comments on the public code of conduct? And I see Councillor Stewart.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to the Director of Recreation. I know you had said before that there had been some issues at the community center about people, being unwilling for temperature checks, and then once that was finished, not being willing to wear masks. Has that improved at all with the signage that was put up?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. We have seen a improvement, and the frontline staff appreciated senior staff and council's direction to support them in that. We have also reached out to the organizations to remind their registrants, their patrons, to respect staff and explain to them, we're only trying to keep them safe and we expect respect. And this past weekend, we had a good weekend. We had one minor incident, but it was taken care of.
Thank you for that, Madam Director. Any other questions, Councillor Stewart?
No, thank you for the information.
Okay, and thank you. Any other councillor have any comments at this time? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The voting on this motion starts with Councillor Stewart, please.
Yes.
Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin?
Yes.
The motion carries unanimously. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is 10.2.4 on a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council receive Report 2020-0154 for information and that Council consider passing the proposed bylaw amendment attached to said report and presented separately at the presentation and consideration of bylaws of this regular meeting of Council as bylaw 4285-2020, and this is with regard to the mandatory mask bylaw amendment. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Okay, I'll open it to councillors. Any questions or comments on this bylaw? And I see Councillor Wink.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, just more of a comment. Just the report says that the City of St. Catharines is contemplating an amendment as such that we've provided. In fact, the City of St. Catharines has now passed that bylaw. Also, this is being presented to the region, so we're not doing this in isolation of any other municipality. It's a deep concern for residents in condos and apartment buildings and whatever. So I think this bylaw amendment is certainly warranted.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Any other questions, comments on this bylaw? Not seeing any, I'll turn to the clerk.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the voting on this motion starts with Councillor Wink. Councillor Wink?
Yes.
Councillor Hahn?
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand?
Yes.
Councillor Olson?
Yes.
Councillor Stewart?
She
Oh, she has
Oh.
the conflict. Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And the motion carries. And the next item on the agenda, Councillor Stewart also has a conflict with this one disclosed on a motion by Councillor Wink, seconded by Councillor Hildebrand. Be it resolved that Council of the Town of Pelham, having given due consideration to the following bylaws, do now read a first, second, and third time and do pass same, and that the mayor and clerk be and are hereby authorized to sign and seal the bylaws. Bylaw 4285 of 2020. Being a bylaw to amend bylaw 4270 of 2020, being a bylaw to require the wearing of face coverings in enclosed public spaces and in enclosed common areas of multi-unit residential private buildings during the COVID-19 pandemic. To you, Mr. Mayor, for discussion.
Turn to council. Any comments, questions on this proposed bylaw? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Starting with Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is motions and notices of motion. There were 3 added to the agenda this evening, and the first one was one by yourself, Mr. Mayor.
I will go third. I'll go last, but I'll let the other councillors go first.
Okay, so the next would be Councillor Hahn.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Pelham lost an amazing individual in April of this year. Mike Chofie was a friend and fellow councillor who dedicated countless hours towards the betterment of our town. In an effort to ensure Councillor Chofie's memory remains alive in Pelham, at the next council meeting, I will ask council to approve the creation of a dedication project working group with the specific purpose of making recommendations for enhancements and alterations to the second floor servery bar area at the Meridian Community Center. The MCC is a sport and social area, one that was near and dear to Mike, and a fitting venue for a special dedication project. I will propose that the 5-person working team consist of Michelle Chofie, Vicky Vans Ravendway, Jen Pilzacker, Councillor Marianne Stewart, and chaired by myself, Councillor Lisa Hahn. I hope I can count on council's support next meeting to approve the formation of this working group and budget so we can move forward with a project to honor our councillor and friend Mike. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And because this is a motion, there is no debate. Correct, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is a notice of motion. The debate would be appropriate when the motion is presented at the next meeting.
Yep, okay, thank you. We will now go to Councillor Stewart. You have a notice of motion.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is just a very brief one. It's a notice of motion to have staff consult with the City of Burlington on the public consultation pre-application meetings between developers and residents. This is an initiative that their current mayor put forward while she was a councillor. And it would have developers meet with the communities where they were planning on building before they spent a lot of money on plans so that they could work together and build a relationship so they had an understanding of each other. So I think with the amount of development that's coming to our town, I think it's a great initiative. So I would like to see something like this go forward in consultation with Burlington. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor, for bringing that forward in 2 weeks. Madam Clerk, I guess it's my turn then? Yes. Okay, Council, my motion, notice of motion, I'm afraid, is a motion that will be directing staff to complete a multifaceted technical study of the metrics that will be outlined in the motion itself. I would only at this time like to stress how important the correct functioning of the pond is at the corner of Rice Road and Highway 20. Without going into, obviously, the motion itself, we'll go going into what technical aspects we'll want to have reviewed. I'm also hoping that the memorandum of understanding that we have with Trout Unlimited will include them in this review. The pond is important as it drains into the last remaining cold stream in Pelham. And just an idea of the kind of water that has to pass through. For every 1 inch of rain we get on 1 acre, it's 27,000 gallons. So on a 2-inch rain, that's 54,000 gallons on an acre. If that pond was to drain approximately 25 acres, and that might be a little bit on the high side, that ends up being 1.5 million gallons of water that has to go through that pond and onto the stream. 1.5 million gallons, kind of hard for anybody to visualize, but that is 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools that would have to go through on the pavement to the pond and into that stream. So it's critical. I was down there today at Pelham Cares. The erosion that is happening on the north side of Highway 20, it's not an over-exaggeration to say that it is horrendous. It's going to cost this town several thousands to stop that erosion and to correct that erosion. So I think that it's important that we take a look at this pond from a technical point of view and see why the erosion's happening and what steps have got to be stopped or taken to correct this problem. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Thank you. Yes, so those motions will be presented on the November 2nd agenda under the name of the mover and seconder, and members of council have been provided with the agenda circulation guidelines for deadlines. The next item on the agenda, through you, Mr. Mayor, is the resolution to move in camera on a motion by Councillor Olson, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public in order to consider the following pursuant to the Municipal Act Section 239(2)(b), personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal employees. And this voting starts with Councillor Hildebrand.
Yes.
Councillor Olson.
Yes.
Councillor Stewart.
Yes.
Councillor Wink.
Yes.
Councillor Hahn.
Yes.
And Mayor Junkin.
Yes.
The motion carries. If members of council will just be patient with staff as we close the live stream meeting and the recording. Pauline?
I can say to the senior staff, although I think maybe Ms. Quinlan should